Hey everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I can't believe I'm saying that because for the longest time I had been pushing this idea off and I finally pressed record today. So I wanted to start off the channel by posting an introduction slash get to know me video. Some of you might be coming from Instagram or TikTok where you already know a little bit about me and my journey, and some of you might have just found me on YouTube for the first time. And I think it's important that I at least had this video for anyone, regardless of where they were coming from, to know who exactly is speaking to them and what to expect from the channel. I'm looking here because I have all my notes and I want to make sure I stay organized and on the topic. But the video today is going to be divided into three main parts, and the first one is a little bit more about my background, my journey to medicine and medical school, what exactly this page is going to be about, why I created the page, all things content. And then the last one is some other like fun personal things about me. And I also gave room for questions on TikTok and Instagram so that people could ask me questions. So I'm going to go through them towards the end. Are we ready? To start off, I go by Ore or Orelua, whichever one you prefer, and I am a first gen low income student at Stanford on a full ride. I was born and bred in Nigeria and I lived there for the first 17 years of my life. I specifically grew up in Abuja and I left there when I was 13 years old, and I had to leave because that was when my dad passed away. And as hard it was for me and my family, it was financially easier for us to move to the southwestern region where we had a lot of our family members there. My mom and dad are originally from Ondo State, and we moved to Accra, which is where we lived for that period after my dad passed away. And at the same time, I was studying in a Catholic school in in Osun State, Oshogo specifically, and I wouldn't say it was the fanciest school at all. I would push it closer to a public school, but I wouldn't also classify it as a public school. We were paying around 100 US dollars. I feel like that might be the best conversion per semester for boarding school. And for day school, it was around 50 US dollars. So it was not the most expensive school, and we didn't have the most like developed amenities, but we made things work, and it was a very, very good school that equipped me to be where I am today. After school, I towards the end of school, I wrote WIAC and I ended up scoring really well that I was able to get a free admission into the Education USA program in Abuja. So I was applying to US and UK universities at the same time as I was applying to Nigerian universities. I knew I wanted to study medicine at the time, so I was applying specifically to the University of Ibadan. So for Nigerian universities, you needed to have WAEC or NECO, and you also needed to have post UTME. So I was studying for post UTME at the same time as I was studying for the SAT, and it was really hard, but I made it work. Ended up applying to the schools that I could, and I got a full ride to study in the UK. So I was very happy. I left Nigeria when I was 17. It was really hard for me because obviously I was leaving my support system before I even turned 18 years old. And one thing about being low income, not just in the US, in the UK, but also in Nigeria, means that when you leave the country, you kind of take the role of being a caregiver or a breadwinner. And so a lot of times when I had to work in school, it was to be able to feed my family at home. And so that was a little bit hard, but it's a lot easier for me now because I understand what it's like and I'm used to it. So yeah, I was working and I was also taking my pre-med courses. I knew I wanted to study in the US because of research and funding opportunities. So I was really going at it. Like a lot of my classmates and friends were like, "What is this?" But they were also very supportive. My academic advisor was like, he doesn't understand what I'm doing, but as long as I do well, then I'm okay. So I just kept on framing a journey that I knew no one I had met had ever done, and I just believed in it. So In third year, I started to think about what I wanted to do after university, and I was really considering an MPH in health policy because throughout undergrad, I was doing a lot of advocacy. I loved the work of advocating for policy changes, but also at the same time seeing what policy changes can do to address inequities at the university. And I wanted to see how I could merge my interest in policy changes with my interest in healthcare and medicine. And that was what led me to get my MPH in health policy. Towards the end, I obviously started thinking about medical school. I was scared, but I was like, it's time, it's time. So I started studying for my MCAT April 2024 and wrote my MCAT finally late July, like the last Friday of July. And that was it. So I ended up like submitting a lot of my applications late, like towards the end of September and onwards. And I had a pretty successful application in the sense that I got into both Stanford and Duke. And for Stanford specifically, I am on a full ride, and that's the main reason why I decided to go here. Currently, a first year at Stanford. I'm loving it. I am growing, I am changing, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for me. Why did I start this channel? I remember 2024, I was talking to my friend, I was crying, I was angry, I was so angry about the fact that I had to do a lot of trial and error when I was applying to medical school. I remember feeling so frustrated about the fact that I didn't have anyone to talk to who understood me, and the fact that I was black, low income, African, and also an international student at the time. It just wasn't that representation that I needed when I was applying. And I knew that pouring that anger and frustration that I felt into something like this was a better way to deal with all those emotions. So I started posting on Instagram and TikTok in particular. But when it comes to YouTube and me creating this channel, I just wanted something longer. I wanted somewhere where I could post long form content that Instagram and TikTok necessarily isn't the place for. And so things like me talking in great lengths about a topic that I'm very passionate about, YouTube is a very good place for me to do that. I created this YouTube channel to continue to talk about issues that are important to me, to continue to show what it's like to be a black first gen low income caregiver, all of the different identities that I hold in medicine. And in as much as I'm proud of myself being able to get to where I am today, I know it's going to be a journey, and I want to make sure that I have a space to continue to share that journey with a lot of other people. I don't think I'm perfect. I don't think you need to be perfect to be at a place like Stanford. And I want to show you guys that I am still growing even as I'm in medical school, and I'm excited to grow. I'm excited to see where I end up being, and I hope you gain a lot of inspiration from seeing my videos. In terms of content, there will be a lot of yapping, podcast style videos, week in my life videos. So I will do day in my lives on TikTok and Instagram, but a cool week in my life could work on YouTube. Like there's AMEC happening in a few days. That is something I will be vlogging on YouTube. Absolutely. Then some other types of advice, I found it hard to post on Instagram and TikTok because it's just advice that I need a longer form content to be able to give. So something like writing, I feel like for me, it's been a lot easier to talk about it when I have a lot more time to get into depth about the things that I'm saying. So definitely there's going to be like a couple of pre-med advice videos on my YouTube channel. Now that being said, I have gotten a couple of suggestions from people on Instagram giving me ideas and tips on what to post on my channel, like study videos. Also, when I was doing TikTok lives during finals, someone suggested doing those study lives on YouTube. So that is definitely something that I will be doing, a lot more study content, and honestly any of the other suggestions that people ask me for. So yeah, that's it content wise, why I created this channel and what to expect from this channel, and I'm so excited to bring you guys on the journey with me. Okay y'all, we're getting to the end of this video, and I am trying my best to catch this on before it goes down, so it's gonna be done pretty quickly. But on this part of the video, it is you guys getting to know more about me outside of medicine. So the first one is my passions. I love to dance. If you follow me on TikTok or Instagram, you've probably seen a couple of my dance videos, and I used to make dance videos on YouTube about 4 years ago, and honestly, I miss that. So, will I have dance videos on my channel? Probably not, but we'll see. The second thing I love to do is a thrifting. Like, everything on me right now is probably thrifted. Yeah. Like, I love a good thrift. Oh my goodness. Oh, I also love reading. And I really wish I had more time to read, but also part of me is like, if you really loved reading, you will make time for it. But I love reading, and I've been getting into Nigerian history lately. So if you have any books that you recommend, Nigerian history, African history, please let me know. I have been getting into that recently. I also love to travel. Like last year for my birthday, I traveled to the US Virgin Islands on a solo trip, and I loved it. And I've traveled to over 10 countries, I think. I can't think of the number right now. But in Asia, in Europe, in North America, and in Africa, I have traveled to a couple of countries there too. So I enjoy it. And I have gotten a couple of questions from people asking me what I want to do like academically. Right now, I'm interested in neurosurgery, but I am not married to the idea of it. But always exploring exactly what I want to do in the future. I also know for a fact that I want to work in academia in some form, be it research or teaching or both. I love academia. I love learning. I love teaching. I want to do that for the rest of my life. Random fact, I can move both of my ears without touching them. And I also have 8 siblings. I have my 3 siblings, and then I also have 5 half siblings. Okay, so that's all the random personal facts about me. Now I'm going to go into the questions that people asked on Instagram and TikTok. First question is, what was it like moving? How did I adapt? How this applies to medical school application? I don't know what that means. I don't know what the last part means, but moving was not that hard for me. At least moving to medical school was not that hard for me, because if you know my story, you know I was moving a lot after my dad passed away. From Abuja, I moved to Accra, and then I also moved to Oshobo. And after that, I moved to the UK for undergrad. And after the UK, I moved to the US for my MPH, also worked in New York, and then came to California. So lived in at least 3 states in the US. And so when it came to moving to California, it really was not the hardest thing that I had done. I think the hardest part for me, it wasn't even moving from Nigeria to the UK, because I had the support from my scholarship, but it was moving from the UK to the US. Oh my goodness, that was very hard. But I made it work, and it was fine. How did I adapt? I'm gonna answer that in terms of the hardest part of moving, and I would say when I moved to the US for the first time and I was really struggling, I made sure to call a good number of people that were back home, that were in the UK. I found a way to make the time difference work, and those were the ways that I kept myself sane. At the same time, I'm also Christian, so I really leaned on my church community. If you're religious, definitely leaning into your community is something helpful. Yeah, and then also finding my own community where it was one of the best things that happened to me when I was getting my MPH. Next question is, first day on campus in med school, what was the drill? Give me the rundown, please. So I did a summer program before we actually started school. We also did orientation too. So I'm like, is that the first day of school? But I think I'll talk about the first day of school. And honestly, I don't even remember, because I had had so many first days of med school at that point in time, with like the summer program, with the orientation. And so it wasn't much of a big deal for me. And I think that's why I don't remember. The next question is treatments towards international students at Stanford Med. I would say that, given that I heard that we have one of the largest percentage of international students, I would say that I feel like that has kind of found its way into like the Stanford system, where they do understand what it's like to be an international student, and they have services that like available from the International Student Center. And I actually do feel like I haven't been treated differently because I didn't grow up like in the US. I will also say that even in times like this with like the current policies, I feel like whenever I speak to people, be it students or other like faculty, like they've been understanding of like the kinds of policies that are changing and that might affect people like us. I got a question from someone asking me if they cover all of my tuition, and yes, they do. What's been the most surprising about schooling in the US for me? That is such a good question. I mean, I had kind of known this before, but if I were to say what's the most surprising, it's probably this. And that's just like US students like juggling so much. And I guess it plays into the whole holistic review of applications. So everyone is doing their academics, they're doing research, they're doing extracurriculars, and it's everything everywhere. And as someone who is type A, I really don't like that everything is like all over the place. But like people be doing everything at once, and I love it too because I feel like I'm also here for the diversity of experiences, and I also don't believe that all that plays into you being a great doctor or a great student or whatever you want to be is just your books. Like I really do think it's a bunch of other different things. So one thing that definitely shocked me was how much people do outside of school in the US, which I love. Let's see. Someone asked me about my UK journey. I'm a Nigerian who is currently awaiting US college decisions, and I want to follow the exact path you're taking. You inspire me when I'm down. Aw, guys, what was your UK undergrad like? I actually did not like my undergrad, and I don't know if I want to share that with you guys right now. I might share that in the future, but I didn't like my undergrad. It was very toxic. At least for my program in particular, I felt like even though most people were in pre-med, I just felt like the culture was very toxic around that like academic performance like culture. And even like when it came to faculty in particular, I didn't like the fact that sometimes when I would submit essays, the feedback would literally have question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. That is not constructive feedback because what do I do? Question marks. So I didn't really like it. I didn't like the fact that I felt like I was struggling alone, and I felt like I was being made to feel like I was stupid because there were just certain things that I didn't understand. And in comparison to a place like Stanford, I don't think Stanford is like that at all. Where like I would be struggling with something and then I'm made to feel stupid. I didn't like that at all. So I didn't like my school, but I love the city that I lived in. I love the UK. I love, like, I'm a big fan of public transport. So, public transport is amazing in the UK, and I love that. The weather was horrible. Oh my goodness. Will not do the weather in the UK again, but I love how slow. I'm not talking about London, so at least now you can remove London from the place I went to. Because London is not slow. But where I was, it was very slow paced. Most of the UK is also very slow paced, and I just love that livelihood, that lifestyle. Oh, I love it. Let's see. And then my last question is, do you think that people need to give up personal life to pursue medicine? My answer to that is no. I gave a little bit of information about my personal life because that was very important in my why medicine. But at the same time, there were a lot of things in my personal life that I did not share. A lot of things. And you don't need to share anything that you don't feel comfortable with. But it's not going to be shared with people outside of those who are reviewing it. So if you do think it's important in your why medicine, I would definitely include it. Yeah, guys, that's the end of all the questions that I got for this video. And thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you stick around. I hope you grow with me. I hope you learn with me. And I'm excited to see what this channel ends up being. But yeah, see you guys in the next video. Bye!